What's going on, guys? My name's Alex. That's Eileen, and you guys are watching and listening to Straight to the Chicane podcast. And this week we're back. We're in Miami. We're in the U.S. It's hot. It's rainy. It's a sprint weekend.
It was a hot mess.
It is. Eileen, I had a crazy weekend watching this. I think you probably had the same.
Yeah, there was a lot. My God.
There is a lot this weekend. There's Max is a father. Is he got double dad strength now, or is he out of it? We had people crashing before even races were starting. It was a lot.
We had a delayed start due to weather in Miami, which is the first time, which is extremely unusual.
Yeah, typically in Florida and Miami, unless it's a
little sprinkle.
Yeah, unless it's hurricane season, or a little storm will come through and kind of wash out really quick. And it seemed like this was more rain than usual for this time of year. So, I think we just got to get into it because it is a lot of stuff this weekend. Like I just said, there is spring weekend. And then we had a lot of news coming into the weekend with Max being a dad. Mm-hmm. From the way they kind of announced it on news, it seemed like it happened like
the baby was being born. Yeah. Like they were like, oh, his baby being born on media day and Max missing it is so on brand for Max. But I'm like, there's no way the baby's being born today and he's still going to be at the track tomorrow.
Yeah.
Like, get real.
No, it was a couple days prior. And so he had a few days with the family and then they flew out.
And of course, there was people, yes, does he have double dad strength? But also people like, is he going to slow him down because he's a dad now? And it's like, no, it's Max. He's even more motivated.
I think he's even more motivated, and I don't think it affects him at all.
Yeah. But he is a dad, so congrats.
Yep. Some other big news. We knew going into Miami that Cadillac was going to do a big reveal, announce some things. We even knew, I think I heard that Sergio Perez was in town.
He was in Miami.
And so rumors are always flying about who's going to be their drivers.
There's a lot of people that are kind of thrown into the pool, a lot of names. And they even had, obviously, the team principal on throughout the weekend for practice.
They did.
And he was like, listen, there's a lot of things, a lot of speculation going on, but nobody's confirming anything at this time. So
right. And so the headquarters is being built right now in Indianapolis. I've seen it a few times driving down there.
Cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool to see.
So we're going to have two American teams now.
Yeah.
But now an American engine manufacturer, which is a big deal.
Yeah, because Haas is ran by Ferrari engines.
Yes.
Yeah. Which was a sight to be seen this weekend with Lewis trying to pass Ocon. Took way longer than it should have.
Oh my God.
But that's a different story.
That's a whole other story.
For later on down the road, as they would say.
Yes.
So those were the big things kind of like coming into the weekend. Another big news announcement that they got was that they signed a extension to the Miami Grand Prix, meaning it's going to be here for another, I don't know, it seems like
16 years, 100 years.
100 years, I keep saying, but no, 16 more years?
16 more years.
Yeah.
Like, think about that. Like, how old are we going to be in 2041? Like, I don't even want to do that.
Yeah. Honestly, it shows how popular it is there in Miami, how much money's probably coming in on that revenue aspect of things. Now, granted, you said the whole entire weekend, there's empty. Places are empty. Seats are empty.
I mean, listen.
Even for the Grand Prix, I don't think it was fully packed either.
Yeah, I think looking at it, obviously, throughout the whole weekend, that for some reason, first of all, obviously, I think Miami brings out a lot of like celebrities, a lot of stars, a lot of influencers, a lot of people who are, paid to be there type of thing. But yeah, I mean, disappointing. Like even for the driver's parade, the grandstand wasn't even packed.
But speaking of the driver's parade, which is typically they get driven around or they drive around in like classic cars or trucks, or they go on to the big semi truck and they all are on there. But this time they had a Lego, all 10 teams had Lego cars.
Mm-hmm. Two-seater
Lego cars, and they did the driver's parade like that. And it was not your typical driver's parade.
It was carnage. It was chaos, I think is what they said. It was so cool though. I think it was, I would say, the highlight of probably all the drivers' weekends. Maybe with the exception of Oscar. But even George, post-race, on the podium, his favorite race of the day was the Lego one. And he crashed out in the Lego race.
He did crash out. Mercedes did. Honestly, it was funny. It was just bumper cars. They used these like scale 1-to-1 Lego cars that were drivable with real tires on there.
How cool. First of all,
we watched a little backstory on like the making of it. They spent like 22,000 hours making these cars, and within, let's just say 5 minutes or so.
I mean, but while they were lined up on the grid, they did a close up of Max, and he just like bumped into the back of the McLaren. He's like, "Oops," you know. So it was gonna immediately be drama from the get go.
Yeah,
but they had a lot of fun. I mean, going 3 wide into the turn.
It was bumper cars, like I just said, and they did go 3 wide, and it was also raining, and it
was crazy.
They were breaking Legos that were like glued on, just getting broken off. So
yeah, I mean, you saw the before and after. There was front wings missing, there was plates missing, there was also, I mean, yeah, more action probably in the Lego race from a damage perspective than the actual race, but at least they got it out of their systems.
Yeah, I think that they did.
I thought it was pretty cool though. It was, you know, I don't know how I would feel if I spent 22,000 hours building the cars for them to just crash them. But
yeah, I mean, look, they're going to get fixed pretty quickly, and then they're going to go and become showpieces somewhere.
Yeah.
And there's a good story to be told that this is where we had to fix it because, you know, so-and-so, Max Verstappen or whoever else was hidden. George Russell crashed into the wall. I thought it was so funny. Pierre Gasly got T-boned into the wall as well.
What a mess.
It was kind of funny. But yeah, I mean, we had multiple races if you count that one too, because we also had the sprint race, which was very interesting, very fun.
Yeah, the sprint race was actually pretty good. It got exciting.
Because of the weather. However, Leclerc didn't even get to
the grid.
He didn't. So usually before races, they do 2 things. They get out on track about, I don't know, let's just say an hour and a half before the race actually starts, and they kind of do reconnaissance laps is what they're called, allowing the car to make sure there's no issues with the car, make sure that the track seems like okay, and so that the drivers kind of get a feel for that day before they kind of come in and start the preparations for the race.
Mm-hmm.
So it was raining.
It was raining.
It was kind of
the track was a mess. Like
it was pretty heavy rain actually.
Yeah. I mean, going into the weekend we knew it was gonna rain. Like that was the drama, like, oh, there's a 60% chance on Sunday. But then it was like I didn't expect it to be as bad, but I guess, you know, heavy rain prior to. But yeah, it wasn't good. Leclerc was out on inters when he didn't probably need to be, considering they changed the tires once they get to the grid. So they probably should have put him on wets, I think is what the problem was. And yeah, he just literally lost control and like he was a passenger and crashed into the wall. Couldn't make it back because obviously the race got red flagged because there was no visibility.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I mean, they couldn't fix the car, so he didn't even get to start this.
No, yeah, because he even got the delay of time to get the car back and see if they could fix it, but it was not. So didn't even get to start.
Yeah, so only one Ferrari in the sprint.
But of that Ferrari, Lewis Hamilton, he actually played the game quite right for the sprint and started, I forget whether he was at 7th or 8th. I think he was, because that's usually where he is lately.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, P7 is the spot, man. I'm like,
so it was P7. He started the sprint, and he was able to get 3rd.
Yeah.
So that was due to
his own choice.
Yep.
He was struggling bad. Like, first of all, I think he was behind Albon because we'll get to Williams. James Vowles for president. But he was struggling on the tires, like before he switched, but he made the call. He's like, listen, I'm like struggling here. Now would be the time to bring me in. Yeah. And so he was one of the first cars to switch to inters, which is a great choice. And then
the yellow.
Or wait, no. Shit. When they started on inters, he switched to slicks. Why? Yeah. And I'm like an idiot.
Yeah. He switched to slicks early.
Yes. But when he came in, he was like, let's do the gamble. And they're like, okay, box for mediums.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, why would we box for mediums? No, softs. And so obviously he had to overrule, make the pit choice.
I'm glad they listened, though, and actually gave him the softs that he asked for instead of doing typically what that team usually does and just throws those mediums on there. Alan them backed.
Yeah. So, he made a great choice, came in at the right time, went to slicks, got the right tire compound, came out, was able to, get ahead of pretty much everybody and end up on the podium. While we know it ended under a safety car, so not a lot could have happened, but he was the fastest car on the track after he switched.
And as the track was drying out, yes, he put down some fastest laps and was catching them.
Yeah. And them being the McLarens.
Correct. The McLaren is on a different world, different planet. They are kind of what Red Bull was 2 years ago, kind of just sailing away in the front. It's whoever's performing better at that team. And honestly, right now it's Oscar. I think Oscar has more wins now than Lando.
He does, yes.
In a shorter period of time.
Right.
So...
yeah, I think
are we at the point now where they favor the one driver yet?
No. McLaren's never going to say that they're going to do that. And they're way too close.
What is the point spread right now? I forget.
It's like 16 points.
Okay, still 2 points.
So it's still way too close. It's only the 6th race. They're not going to do anything crazy. Plus, Lando's been there for so long. They're not just going to say, okay, go ahead and take the number 2 seat. They've been very adamant that they have 2 number 1 drivers.
Which it seems like they do.
And exactly. We haven't seen them have to race each other yet. So that's the big thing.
Yeah, it's been either pretty dominant one or the other, realistically.
Yeah, I think, I said it yesterday. I think at the end of the day, currently... and I know Lando has been very outspoken for it. If he, tries to fight, he's told that he did the wrong thing. If he doesn't try to fight, he didn't do something right. But I think he gets played by Max very easily. And, there's only been the one incident last year in Austria where they actually came to blows. Most of the time, Max really takes advantage of the situation knowing that Lando's probably going to bail out, because he doesn't want to have that incident. Even this race, I think Max kind of lost control going into that turn.
He did.
And
they all announced.
I don't think he did it on purpose, but Lando was like, what was I supposed to do? I would have crashed into the wall, So he's always on that receiving end, I think. And so he gets kind of screwed over. Whereas I feel like Oscar is more aggressive.
And calmer.
And... at the
level-headed.
Yeah, and even his overtaking on Max from this race, because as we need to remember, Max started on pole for the Grand Prix, and Oscar was able to get past Max relatively quicker, and Lando had to battle with him back and forth, give a position back because they overtook off the track. There was
good battling.
It was, yeah.
And I'll add to your point too here that I think Max just mentally has the advantage over Lando. I think he's just more of a tactful kind of, driver where, I'll let you get close here because I know where I can move and maneuver, and I know I can do X, Y, and Z better than you. So I'll let you think you're here, but I'm just going to continue to be on the inside and force you to work it. Right. And make the mistake. Because rarely Max makes mistakes. Now, granted, this weekend he made a few major mistakes, which cost him both in the sprint and in the race. So, which is not, very often. Like you just said, though, he turned a little hard and he had a little slip. He had a correct.
He did.
But then in the race, there was a couple issues where he didn't quite perform perfectly up to his perfection.
And he definitely was saying it's the brakes or whatever. Because when obviously
it probably was too.
When Oscar was able to get by him, he locked up, and that's really how Oscar was able to get through. But was that because
doesn't happen that often?
Oscar was putting pressure on him, or is it because the car isn't what it needs to be? Because, Max was definitely on the radio these brakes, the car doesn't work,
I think it's both. I think it's both. I think it's Oscar putting pressure and I think the car not performing exactly how they want it to. I think the car brakes were overheating and causing him not to be able to get the same brake point that he wanted and going deeper in the turns and locking up.
Yeah. But I will say, I don't think he did a lot wrong in the sprint race. Max finished P17. This is the first time Max has finished out of the points.
But he also got a 10-second penalty.
Okay.
Which wasn't his...
Exactly. That's what I'm trying to get to.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
So
I mean, he did get a test. But
he
the team.
he didn't do anything wrong. He didn't do anything wrong himself.
No.
Sure, he was released early, and yes, he got a 10-second penalty, but he raced fine in the sprint race. He didn't make really any mistakes himself.
Maybe one or two slight errors.
He was brought in, and he was released into Kimi Antonelli, who started on pole position during the sprint race.
Which we haven't even really talked about yet. Yeah.
Which we haven't talked about, yes. But Max, I just want to put this out there, which Max has finished in the points since 2016. This is the first time where he's finished a race outside of the points. And granted, it was a sprint.
Or, because typically he would either
DNF,
yeah,
whatever. Yeah. That is so crazy. So, yeah.
He's consistent, too. You got to give it to him.
But damn, the pit crew at Red Bull needs to get their SHIT together.
Well, yeah, there's some issues going on. I think probably someone will get fired for that particular or recommended for that.
6 races in, and I think about all the problems that the pit crew has had.
They had quite a few this season.
And it's so crazy.
But is it because the main pit crew guy? I've always forget his name. We just watched a video with him.
I know. I can't remember. I just think of him as F1 mechanic. Yeah. But yeah, he's not in the pit crew anymore.
Right. And who else is not? We saw him a lot. So we know he's not there anymore. Who else is not there?
There's been so many changes at Red Bull. Obviously, like Jonathan Wheatley's not there. Obviously, Adrian Newey's not there. There's a lot of drama.
How much of those two affect the pit crew? I don't know.
I mean, if you're in the pit crew and you're looking at upper leadership of people that are designing the car, like, head sporting director, people like that leaving, all the drama circulating around, Helmut Marko, Christian Horner.
Sure.
I don't know. Maybe I wouldn't stay there, but yes, unusual for Red Bull. We're seeing a continuation of that. So
yeah, that was a really messed up thing, and I know they got fined in the 10-second penalty for Max, which pretty much ruined the sprint for him. That brings us to now Kimi Antonelli, and let's talk about Mercedes a little bit. They're looking good as a team. They're fast. The car's looking pretty good, and in a condition that this track has some high speed stuff and then a lot of
straights
and then low speed turns, right? Performing really well. In fact, Kimi Antonelli performing really, really good, beating George this weekend, which was, I think, the first time.
Both races.
Both races, but yeah, getting pole position or whatever you want to call it for the sprint.
Sprint pole, I guess. Yep. What we'll call it.
And then taking third place.
Yep.
Qualifying third, I should say better.
For the Grand Prix, yeah.
For the Grand Prix, and had a not so good race, kind of fell back, and some unfortunate things happened to him that didn't really pan out right.
Yeah.
But really performing like a fast driver during when it counts, when it's qualifying. On
a track that he's never driven on either. True. I mean, keep in mind that none of the rookies have driven in Miami, so this was their first, weekend driving here.
He's only been in the simulator, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think we continue to talk about Kimi, and I think we'll continue to talk about Kimi in the future. Obviously, he's 18, which is so crazy. And he had an amazing weekend from a qualifying perspective, racing not so great. And obviously the sprint race was totally destroyed because he had basically a drive-through penalty because he couldn't even pit after Max hit him. He had to drive back out and then come back in.
And had major damage.
Yes, of course. Well, and so did Max. And that's why Max's sprint race was ruined to start, but then he got the 10-second penalty.
Yeah.
But yeah, Kimi had a tough go, I think, at the start of the sprint race. Obviously, he was expecting a penalty for Oscar going into turn 1. When they were side by side and Antonelli went off the track, so.
But unfortunately, that was pretty clean, though,
It was, and the rules, obviously, they voted that Oscar had the corner, so tough. But then even in the actual Grand Prix, tough start too. He locked up. He had some tire, wear, flat spot. So I think that kind of ruined. And then from a pace perspective, he just was a little bit slower than George.
Yeah. George has got some race pace because he's got a lot of experience. He's been with the team now in that car for a little while.
And George was saying he was struggling all weekend. He's like, oh man, the car, I don't know what's going on. And then he ends up still performing well. So, it's same thing. George is still, George is P3 in the Drivers' Championship. And he's he's P4. He's right behind Max. But he's right in the running still. So
he is.
I wouldn't rule him out. And when you think about it from like a consistency standpoint, he hasn't won any races yet, but he's put it on the podium, almost every race.
He has. He's gotten lucky a couple times to get on that podium. There was a couple of things that kind of just happened in his favor. I think the most recent one was when he took like second or third, whatever it was, a couple races ago. It was because of just situation. I want to talk about Williams though a little bit.
Yay!
Because, like you said, James Vowles for president, he has really turned that team around and showcased that this car and these drivers can compete.
Yeah.
With the top 10 drivers, they're on par with that as well.
I think it's so, we've talked about it before, but it's impressive to see what James Vowles has done since he's been there. Granted, I think his first year, like Logan Sargent was signed, but, they've got a great lineup right now. They were fast this weekend, and they've actually, this is their best start that they've had in, 8 years.
Uh-huh.
They scored more points this weekend than they scored all of last year combined, which is crazy. Great sprint race. Alex Albon had a tough situation. He ended up getting a penalty, so he dropped out of the points too. And since we finished under the safety car, it kind of screwed everybody if they got a penalty because everyone was jumbled up.
They're all right there, yeah.
But, not for nothing. They're out qualifying, one Red Bull, the Ferraris. Alex Albon finished P5 in the race, which is amazing. James Vowles for president.
And Carlos is always right there, too. He qualified P6, I think it was, or P5.
I think it was P7.
It was right in front of Lewis.
Which race?
No, yeah, because no.
Which race?
Lewis he qualified P12 for the main race, which was a terrible sight.
But he did, at the end of the day, he beat Lewis this weekend in qualifying. He beat Lewis last weekend in qualifying. So there's a lot of, people talking out there. But I think Williams, it's been impressive what they're doing. They're obviously they were battling with Haas for the best of the rest, but they're almost I'm the number 4 team now.
I think so.
So we think they're better than Ferrari?
It's tough because I think Ferrari...
I think right now,
Mercedes.
It's McLaren, Mercedes.
Yeah.
And that's the constructor's order. McLaren, Mercedes, Red Bull, Ferrari, and they're very close. Yeah. And then it's 40 points back to Williams. But, that just goes to show all the progress they're making. And then next year, there's new regulation changes.
And all teams are preparing for next year. Some more than others.
Yeah. And I think too, even bad weekends for Williams, it just goes to show James Vowles' leadership. He's always very motivating. He's always, very positive to his drivers. When they make mistakes, when things happen, Carlos had, a tough, go at the beginning of the season switching to a new team.
Yeah.
And he's been very supportive. And I think we've talked about it before.
He's also had some bad luck in the first 2-3 races.
Right. Yeah, of course. And, he wasn't super happy with team orders this week. And, he was a little bit vocal about it, but still, I think he had a great race, great finishing. But I think what my point is, I keep saying James Vowles for president. I just think what he's done there has been so significant. He's created a great culture. He's created a great environment. And that's what you need from a team principal is somebody who's going to lift you up, motivate you, show you what the future can look like and support you. And that's why, I've always been critical of Red Bull because I just feel like they don't support their teams the way that they need to.
Or their employees.
Drivers, yeah. So I think this shows it. And, not to get away from Williams, but also Zach Brown, what he's done at McLaren, not just McLaren F1, but also even IndyCar. McLaren is performing well with Zach Brown. So I think, think about it this way. 2 years ago in Miami, McLaren was getting lapped. They were dead last. They were horrible. They won the constructors last year, and they're blowing they're leading the chart. They're on a different planet, like we said.
Yeah, they're pretty much starting to pull away in the constructors.
Yeah, and I think both their drivers feel supported. Both their drivers feel I said they're never going to say this Lando's number 1, Oscar's number 1. They got a 1-2 this weekend, over 30 seconds.
Yeah.
over half a minute. They were 0.7 a lap faster than every other car.
Every other car.
So I think from a leadership standpoint, there's been significant changes, and you see the progress these teams are making.
Well said.
Well said, yes. James Vowles for president.
Yeah, and the thing is that they do cool things too. James Vowles and Alex Albon got to go and fly with the Blue Angels.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Which was a cool little video to see what they do. A lot of teams do a lot of cool things.
I know. I mean, Miami, I feel like brings it out. Like, I mean, the amount of parties and events. Like, I feel like everyone's probably so exhausted after this weekend.
Yeah.
Because there's just so much that needed to, like so many things that happened. So, like, we didn't even get to the liveries yet, but like the livery launches.
That's right. There was a launch of livery launches specifically for this, and helmet releases and all those things. Usually they do a lot of merchandise releasing specifically for Miami too, and that also happens. So yes, parties everywhere.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing about Miami and I think that's why they greenlit another 16 years is because it's not just about the racing. I think it's more about the amount of money that is being spread out throughout the city at all the events. It's bringing more people in America, talking about Formula One, things like that. And people that want to party. Oh, there's another reason to go to Miami. Oh, it's this. Yeah. It's I'm here at Formula One. You know what I mean?
I know. We're going to Formula One. I'm like, it's a race. It's not a thing. But that's just me. But I mean, it is impressive. You already talked about it, but obviously like it's at the Miami Dolphins, the football team stadium and
Miami Garden.
It brings in 25% more than all the football games combined, which is crazy.
Yeah, so all their home games, which probably is like somewhere between like 6 and 8 home games for the NFL Miami Dolphins. Yeah, and it brings in what you said, 20% more roughly.
Like 25% more.
Yeah, for just a
4-day
weekend.
Yeah, it's huge. So I think if you're looking and you're comparing, we prefer going to Austin, obviously, not to get off topic, but if you're looking for like a party event type of thing, Miami and Vegas are definitely the races if you're choosing that.
And I would even say probably Miami is the better spot just because it's the South Beach vibes. You
get the weather, like you get a good combination of everything. So, but yeah, I'm like, I think it was, hey, it was a success. It was a banger weekend. The sprint was definitely like interesting. I felt like going into it, I was nervous that it wasn't going to be a great race, but it ended up.
Honestly, I think this race was one of the better races of the year. I know we've had a few good ones this year already, but like the amount of overtakes that we got to see, the amount of battles that we got to see with Max and there was just a lot of things happening throughout the whole entire in both races.
Safety cars,
and
weather,
yellow flags and things like that. Yeah, it made the whole weekend interesting. I was not bored the entire weekend. I know you said, I think you said at every moment there was like, I don't know what's going on, but I was enjoyed the whole weekend.
I was just waiting for the weather to drop during the Grand Prix, and they're like, George was like, it's raining, but then I was like, is it or is it just sweat?
And I think there was probably just 100% moisture in the area, and
the rain got a little bit slippery.
The rain was so close that it was like right over there. You could see the storm. You know?
That's Florida for you, though. Like it will look pitch black out, but then it doesn't even rain. Yeah. And then, because when we were in Miami, it wasn't even cloudy, it felt like overhead, and it was raining.
Yeah.
And then by the time you get your rain gear out, then it's over. And so it's like, it was kind of cool that we had a little bit of rain, but I was waiting for it to kind of throw a little curveball into the Grand Prix, and we didn't get that. But, hey.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. I agree.
Okay, so let's talk about Ferrari.
Okay. So we already kind of mentioned Charles being out on the reconnaissance lap for the
not a great way to start the weekend, I think, for Ferrari fans.
Qualifying for the main race, Charles did good. He was up in the top, I think 6. I think he was in that area.
For the race?
For the race.
No, he was 8th.
Oh man, I'm way off.
Yeah, he was 8th, and he was like, "Listen, this is as fast as I could go."
And you're right. And then Lewis was in 12th, and actually he was I think he was less than 3/10 away. I think it was like 2.
He was less than. He was a 10th away.
Okay.
This was the closest that Lewis actually had qualified to Charles. Yeah,
I didn't know that.
So Lewis is feeling better with the car, but the car's not feeling better for the drivers. So, and Charles has been comfortable with the Ferrari for so long, and he's typically like Mr. Saturday, like puts in a great one lap.
Typically.
And he literally was like, this is all I got. Like I literally cannot go any faster. So, they got out qualified by the Williams, and he was like, and that's the truth. Like that's where we're at.
I mean, we watched Lewis stay behind Ocon in a Haas. I would say 6 laps.
Yep. Well,
8 laps, maybe a little bit more. It was kind of ridiculous where he was under a second, had DRS,
yeah.
and was never making the pass.
Listen, and same thing with Charles. Charles wasn't able to get past the Williams. And so, obviously we had some different strategies and they both were struggling. Lewis ended up finally getting past because he was on the hards to start.
Yeah.
And so
tire strategy worked in his favor.
Ocon, of course, was struggling. So he ended up getting past him. I think Ocon pit like the next lap.
He did.
Everyone was waiting to pull the trigger, I think, because
the rain.
There was the alleged rain. And
rain in lap 14.
Yeah. Right. And then it was like lap 18 and I'm like, where's the rain? I'm like, bring the rain. So, I think that was tough. Charles and Lewis were on opposite strategies.
But they were right next to each other.
And they were with each other the whole race, essentially.
And it seemed like, to me, the communication wasn't great with the team because
something's not
obviously right. They obviously were on different tire strategies. So obviously the pace of the cars were at a different thing. And so right away,
right,
the team strategist should have been in the background saying, we need to have Lewis pass just to kind of keep the momentum going. However, it was like 3 laps. He was really right behind.
It was 4 laps.
And then it was like, during that time, there was a decent amount of communication going on, it seemed like, between Lewis and his team and them telling them, hold on, we're going to check. And then they wanted him to stay behind and use DRS.
We are checking.
And then he's like, just following up, I'm burning my tires out. Yeah. What do you want me to do? Because he did. And honestly, I think those 4 laps behind there, were the best part of the tire. And after he got past, the tire was kind of blasé and he didn't really get to do much. And I honestly, you're right. Yeah. Once Leclerc got the call, which was a single time call, he let him pass pretty quickly.
There was, of course. I think Charles was playing the team card for sure. Like even on his radio, he was like, it is what it is, like whatever. But, I saw it coming because Lewis came out on the mediums. I saw him creeping up and I said to you, oh, we're just going to waste time here.
Yeah, you did.
We're just going to waste time with him fighting him. Why they should have called it immediately. I don't know why they didn't.
I don't know what the hesitation is either.
But yes, Lewis was very vocal on the radio this weekend.
He was, and they actually aired all of it.
And they aired all of his grievances.
On TV.
And it made for some spicy stuff. And
he even was offering to let Carlos by, too.
I mean, at the end of the day, I think there's frustration with the drivers because the car, it's a Ferrari. I mean, last year they were competing for the Constructors' Championship up into the last race.
Yeah.
And what the heck is going on? So, but the communication was definitely poor because obviously they let Lewis through after 4 laps. He was pissed off, trying to chase him down. Then it was like Leclerc's hards were coming into the window. So then he was right there and he's like, well, what are we doing here? Now he's burning his tires up. And so then they told Leclerc that Lewis was going to let him by before they even asked Lewis to let him through.
Correct.
And so it's like just another communication issue. Like, why are you telling one driver like, oh, he's going to let you by before you even ask the other driver? It's just Ferrari being Ferrari. And we haven't seen a lot of like really shit strategy or bad pit stops or anything from them this year. It's just been the car hasn't been where it needed to be.
Yeah.
So this weekend I felt like was
the strategy mess ups.
Really poor strategy.
Yeah.
They brought back the clown meme again.
I mean, look, they would have put mediums on Lewis in the sprint race.
I know.
So.
Yeah, so not great. But I will say, post race, everything was fine. Lewis was like, listen, people may be sensitive. I'm over it at this point. I'm also like, I'm driving the car. I'm frustrated. He did bring up like, listen, in China, because we all know that, like Lewis was like, hey, listen, you're on opposing strategy. I'm going to let Charles through. I'm not doing well. So he was like, when he finally brought that up, that's when they decided to change their mind. It was like he had to override the choice at Ferrari to like get by with the better tires.
Yeah, I don't know what that's about because they got to fix that.
Yeah. And so, I mean, Fred was very he was complimentary of the team and said, we made the right decision. And team orders, if Lewis couldn't get him, it was going to be always to switch back, which they did.
Yeah, well, and that makes sense, and that's fine.
Yeah, but still, could Lewis have gotten through probably if they would have done it immediately? most likely, because he did get within, like a 1.5 second time frame to Antonelli.
Yeah.
Could it, have actually happened?
If he would have had better tire at that time without it being overheated, sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
So they need to regroup. They have some upgrades, I think, coming to the next race, so we'll see. But it's been a disappointing start for Ferrari. It's tough. So, and then obviously the other big thing, I think, you already said it, but Lewis was critical. Like, should I let Carlos through too? Well, we saw Carlos on like one of the last turns just fully send the car into the corner.
Almost passed them.
And did a little bumper cars. Almost took them both out.
Mm-hmm.
Did not get a penalty for it, which I'm surprised. But I think it's probably because there was nothing major that actually happened and they both finished in that order. But that was interesting. I think Lewis was pissed off and probably like, screw this race type of thing. And Carlos was trying to take advantage of it. So, but yeah, hey, it made for some entertainment though for the weekend, I will say.
I mean, it was entertaining throughout the whole entire weekend. And that did help finish the race out with some entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
I got nothing more really to say about Ferrari.
We're putting it to bed.
Putting that one to bed. I think the big shocking thing is though, and it's been like this for the last few weekends of racing, is Aston Martin and I can never say their name right. Stake F1
team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They are just they're struggling.
Yeah.
Those two teams are.
We knew that Stake was like we're 100% not investing. I mean, they're switching to Audi, obviously, but
yeah,
they actually had a better qualifying because Bortoleto got through to Q2 for the Grand Prix, which was impressive. But then he had to retire the car. So, there was a few retirements for mechanical issues this race weekend, which we haven't seen.
Yeah, we didn't really touch on it either because Ollie Behrman had an engine pretty much explode. The whole car just died.
Yeah.
But all the cars that pretty much left, they all were able to get off the track fairly easily, and they moved to
just VSCs. So no full safety cars, which, I mean, I think they're both going to continue to struggle. I think Aston Martin is probably 100% invested. Of course, Adrian Newey's working on the next car and what that looks like. And, but Stroll had another good weekend when it came to the sprint race. I mean, he's in the top 10 from the Drivers' Championship, which he gets a lot of shit. And, we've given him a lot of shit too in the past.
He does have more points than Alonso.
Alonso has no points this season, which is so crazy. Yeah. And he did spin in the Grand Prix, and he crashed out because of Liam Lawson in the sprint race.
I'm Liam Lawson.
I'm like, those two listen, Liam Lawson and Alonso did not have a good start, and this weekend was definitely tough. So he crashed out. Liam hit him in the corner and sent him into the wall. But I think we'll see Aston Martin bounce back. I think next year will probably be a better depiction, but I don't know if we're going to see a lot of crazy. We're not going to be seeing podiums from them, but hopefully some points.
Yeah, I'd like to see some points at least.
Yeah,
and that kind of makes me, I think Stroll unfortunately has probably secured a spot for the next year specifically too. Just kind of like you just said, staying in the top 10 in the points area.
Yeah.
So he's still driving okay, right?
I mean, he's also for the sprint race, he made the right call. He went in right after Lewis, and they both came in. They obviously got onto slicks right away, and he ended up in the points, which he's there when he needs to be.
Yeah, and he just needs the car to be more consistent.
Yeah,
but I think there's a couple guys that are on the verge of losing.
There is
seats possibly, and I've even heard Ollie Behrman his name mentioned, and I don't know how because he is performing pretty well.
That was Ruth. She threw that out yesterday, and I'm like, listen, his engine blew up this weekend, but he did qualify P20, and Ocon was in Q3.
Yeah.
So tough qualifying for him.
He also has never been here either. This is his first time.
Right. But he qualified that way on pace, and so.
No, I know.
Yeah.
I'm not denying any of that.
But I don't think we should be ruling him out that he's, and I don't think Haas is feeling that way either. But the big rumor, of course, coming out of this weekend, and I think since the start of the season, has been Jack Doohan. I always feel like I say it wrong. But Alpine, considering they have Franco Colapinto as their reserve driver, are they going to make a change going to Imola? So that is what is being discussed currently.
Yeah, and we heard a lot of drama. He was heated going qualifying for the sprint race because he didn't make it out in time.
Yeah.
And he didn't make it across the line to qualify for a lap, so he didn't even get a lap in essentially.
Yeah, because of the mishap in the pit lane.
That's right, because
coming out.
So essentially what happens is they double stack, meaning they put one car in front of the other in the pit lane to do all the tire change and whatever they needed to do. However, Jack was in the back, and his car was ready to go, and he was freed before the car in front of him was, but because of the way they were stacked, he had to wait.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen this years ago, back in the day when like Alonso
did that on purpose with Hamilton.
did some shit, and it was it wasn't necessarily on purpose, but it was very reminiscent.
Okay. It was a flashback, yes, but Alonso did that on purpose.
He did at that time,
yes.
Even though I don't know, I think he even admitted to it now. I think, but anyway, so yeah, Jack was not able to get out and get a qualifying lap in time, and that really screwed him. And you heard how
he was so mad.
I mean, you could even when he was out of the car
walking away,
the camera has probably a microphone on it. Was picking up just everything he was saying.
I swear there was F-bombs, multiple F-bombs.
I'm pretty sure there was a lot of drivers this weekend that are getting fined for a lot of the swear. There was
Antonelli on the radio said F me, like there was a lot. Yeah. But they did say too, I think going into this weekend, that they were thinking about changing the penalty for the swearing piece, and George was like, because George is the head of it, George was like, well, we'll believe it when we see it, type of thing, and we're not going to comment on it until then. But are we going to see a driver's change? I mean, like, I think that Flavio is as cutthroat as Red Bull is, so I wouldn't be surprised.
I wouldn't be surprised either, and honestly, I think it's on the table.
Yeah. Which is unfortunate, because I just feel like he's kind of been doomed from the get-go. And it's not like Alpine is performing, like, amazing. Like, Pierre has had some good weekends, I think, from a qualifying, perspective. And a couple races where he's performed pretty well.
Yeah.
And so, but Jack is a rookie and Pierre's not. And Pierre's been with the team for a couple years. So, I think it's tough. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think we'll know more probably in the next two races whether or not Jack's going to be replaced or not. I think that's when it will happen personally.
I think, obviously I wouldn't say Ollie, but the next for me would be Liam Lawson. Like, I feel like, to get into Formula One, and I think a lot of people feel some type of way because obviously there's a lot of people who are Daniel Ricciardo fans. And obviously the way he came in, he was very cocky. Then he got the Red Bull seat. Then he got kicked out 2 races later. But he really hasn't been performing that great in the V-Carb.
No, he's been outpaced by his teammate pretty much every single time. His teammate, Isaac, has actually been pretty good, like qualifying in top 10.
Qualifying with Lewis.
Typically, he's been early. I mean, it's Lewis, yeah. And there is a lot that now he doesn't necessarily finish right with Lewis or in that.
He almost finished in the points. He almost did. He was like, he needed to stay within that 5-second window because Yuki had a penalty during the Grand Prix for speeding in the pit lane.
Yeah.
But he just finished outside of that, so he was P11. But, he's definitely outperforming Liam, out-qualifying Liam.
Yeah, and I think there's a few drivers. I think we got Kimi Antonelli, who, as far as the rookies,
he's the favorite. Yeah, of course. He's doing really
amazing. Good. We got Isaac doing really well, or pretty well. And Ollie's like on that bubble too. Like, he's had some good shining moments. He's also in a Haas, but then like you said, Ocon is putting it in Q3 for qualifying.
Yeah, but also I would say it's a pretty mixed bag at Haas. Like, some weekends Ollie's doing better than Ocon. So, I think that's that. And then Bortoletto, I just think Stake is so far off. But I thought, this weekend was impressive. He obviously out-qualified, got into Q2, out-qualified Nico. And so, I think that's good. We haven't seen a whole lot of crazy issues, crashes, mistakes.
With
any of the rookies, really, with the exception of like the first race, Isaac Hadjar crashing in.
And I think we talked about it early on that we thought we were going to be blocked.
We thought it was going to be carnage. I was like,
there hasn't been.
It's going to be so crazy.
No, you're right. It hasn't. I mean, other than the Lego race.
Other than the Lego race, and they did that on purpose. And that was the veterans crashing into other people. So, yeah, I mean, I think we'll see what happens. Liam definitely, I'm sure, is feeling the pressure too. But I think he's got some work to do. So
yeah, he does.
But speaking of V-Carb, we have to say their livery was amazing.
You like the all pink?
I really liked it. They know how to do a special livery.
Speaking of livery, so you like that. There was, like you said earlier, there was a few cars that came out with specific liveries.
There was 3, yeah.
Steak in them, and so you like theirs the best then.
Yeah.
Ferrari one is just not good. It was
Ferrari just, for some reason. So last year in Miami we had the blue too, but it was a different color blue,
which was a better blue.
The suits were great last year too. I mean, you have the merch from last year, and then they did just a little bit of blue. And that's it. And then this year they did a little bit more blue, and so it was like the whole back of the car was the HP printer.
Yeah.
And then the suits were great. I really liked them. They were all white and blue. But it's like, I understand they're trying to stay with the significance of the Ferrari red.
Yeah. But
if you're going to do a special livery, you just got to go for it.
I mean, they also have like a special yellow. That's a Ferrari yellow. And
they've done things in the past.
I know. They need to get away from just that red. If they're going to do a special livery, it needs to be a special livery.
It would have been cool to see it as like a completely white car with blue, whatever they could have done. But yeah, the V-Carb was impressive. Obviously, they didn't race with the wheel covers on, but the wheel covers for the actual launch were the Red Bull can tops, which I thought was so cool. So just looked really good. I think they did Miami right. Obviously we see a lot of pink. The other team that we saw pink on that I didn't think did it great was Mercedes, which they just did their suits and their kits.
Yep. But I did like their new hat for their merch, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I just didn't like the people were calling it the football, like the soccer ball print.
Yeah.
And then, it had like the flowers. But hey, seemed to work out. Antonelli on sprint pole, George on the podium. So hey.
Yep.
I don't want to knock it.
You're right. So there was a lot of things that happened this weekend. It was a pretty big weekend for Formula One. I think very successful, very good weekend.
Yeah.
Good racing. So even if you're not an avid watcher, I think you enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was good.
We have a week off.
Yep.
And then I forget where we're going.
We're in Imola next.
Oh man, already.
Yeah.
It's already Italy.
I know. Which also, speaking of contract renewals, the rumor, and we didn't talk about this, but Domenicali said that they don't know if they're going to be able to keep 2 Italian races.
I know. We've debated this. Look, we have 3 American races.
I know.
And they want more. And then they only had 2 Italian and they want to get rid of one.
Like, I don't feel like you could get rid of either Imola or Monza.
Right. And then they're going to put, like you said, they're going to put Spa on a rotation.
Yeah, Spa's on a rotation and starting next year. And then we're signed for, listen, we're from the States. We get it. And we do have 3 races here. We also, our country is huge. And so when you think about it, isolated to Europe, obviously things are very close. I understand that, but to take off iconic tracks like that just seems wrong. So I agree with the frustration.
Yeah, I do too. I like the Italian tracks. I like all the other things. We don't need any more here for sure.
Yes.
So I'll leave it at that. I think we've had enough time. We've talked enough to you guys. I want to know what you guys think.
What was your favorite part of the weekend?
Yeah, I want to know, I guess, who your guys' driver of the day was, because that was one thing we never really even talked about either.
Yeah, it was Oscar, the fan vote.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, I think amazing weekend, 3 race wins in a row. Yeah. He's now, obviously extended his championship lead, so we'll see. And for me, I voted for Alex. I think I'm sharing the sentiment, James Vowles for president, but I think Alex had a great weekend.
Cool. Yeah, he did have a good weekend. It was good racing. Mine probably would have went to Oscar. He was just really dominant and had we didn't
even see him.
He's on fire.
Yeah.
I don't know if I got much more. I think that pretty much says it all.
Yeah, we'll see you in Imola.
All right. She said it. See ya.
Bye.